Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Doug, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan, our buddy Hal Gill coming up here in a moment. Nashville, Vancouver, Game 6 down in Nashville. He'll help us tee that up. Game 6, Vegas, Dallas in Vegas tonight. And, of course, the Leafs are probably in the air right now on their way to Boston. Game 7, Leafs, Bruins tomorrow night. And the NHL has just announced Game 1 of the Florida series. Boston or Toronto will be Monday night.
Wow, I love that. They're take your time and 2 days off, 2 days, and then they're like the second round starting. Got to get it. It's just like what are you doing?
I told you, I was complaining about it the other day because the first round is 16 days long, and I think the league stretched it out too long, and now all of a sudden they want to get rolling. Obviously, after Game 7, you are playing 2 days later. That's usually the trend, anyways. But I think the league wants to get going. And depends on if my understanding is there's potential if some series end tonight, they could either start Sunday or Monday as well, right away, get going.
They should. I mean, look at the Knicks won last night. The Garden's open. Why are the Rangers in Carolina? Unless I missed something today, I may have missed an announcement.
Fire up tomorrow, man. Who cares?
Get going. I mean, exactly. By Sunday, at a minimum, you should be playing.
Yeah, I agree.
Get cooking here. If Vancouver wins tonight. They have home ice. Tell Edmonton, get into Vancouver. Hurry up. Let's go. Let's get cooking.
I think that's what I'm saying. You hear that maybe potentially Sunday something could start if things finish tonight.
Right.
So, you would have it, which is good. Every night type of thing we'd have a big packed weekend.
Ooh, man, we sure will. Tomorrow, if you're a Leaf fan, if you love pucks and ponies, you got the Derby right into Game 7. Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow's Eddie O is just Eddie O's fantasy day.
Yes. Eddie is a Maple Leaf alumni. He loves hockey. He loves the Derby. He's picking ponies. And what was the one he liked again yesterday?
I was just going to ask you,
wrote it
remember
down.
the name?
I wrote it down,
in
can't
the studio.
It was the number 4 horse. Something Freedom. Chasing Freedom. Chasing Freedom. I'm going to hammer Chasing Freedom tomorrow. Maybe a little parlay. See what the Leafs have tomorrow night, because we'll get to our best bets later this afternoon. And I've had a difficult time picking the winners. I will say I'm still kind of reflecting. I think we all are still looking back on the game last night. I think by tomorrow everyone will wake up and realize, all right, it's a game day, like Game 7 tonight. Something's going to happen here. These are historical moments, right? You look at what we've done collectively, the three of us. We've been doing shows together for a long time. And which moments do we reference the most? Game
Not
7
winning.
and 13, absolutely. Up 3-1 against the Habs. The playoff moments are what you remember. Yes, winning the lottery and getting Matthews was significant. Hiring Babcock, hiring Shanahan, Dubas leaving. There are obviously a number of different things that are on, constantly on the top of your mind when discussing this team. But in terms of moments, on the ice moments, it's generally the playoff losses in the past.
It's always the playoffs.
It's always the playoffs.
The only other one that was crazy was the David Ayers, and that was a November whatever. Wasn't that that? But
yeah,
that was
such
a crazy. Outside of that, it's all playoff moments. It's not. And there's the 4-goal game by Matthews. There is some outliers, but for the most part, it's what you do at the most important time.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing right now.
And you spend 50 weeks talking it up, waiting for it. Who cares what's happening during the regular season? It's all about the playoffs. The Milwaukee Bucks put out this long video before their round against Indiana started about how the 82-game season was basically irrelevant. I think they called it an 82-game preseason, which I'm sure Adam Silver loved. I'm sure ESPN and TNT loved hearing that too. But basically saying everything that just happened was a tune-up for what we're about to walk into. And they lost last night. They're out. And it can happen that quickly. And the best teams, the teams that go to the playoffs every year, that's really what it's about. That's what Vegas thinks about all the time. That's what Edmonton's been thinking about all the time. That's what the Leafs have been thinking about. This is your moment. You got a 2-month window to basically define who you are.
Well,
and I think tomorrow night,
there's nothing else to play for. Hey, that's what it's all about, right?
Exactly. If you keep knocking on the door, if you're there every year, right? If you're Montreal, if you're Ottawa, you're playing to get there, right? There's teams that are transitioning that are trying to get back into the dance. Leafs have been in the playoffs 8 years in a row.
I know, and some paths have opened up for him. That that COVID year where they had the Habs who struggled all season long, and you've got Winnipeg sitting there who struggled all year long too. That was a path. That was one of those years, and they pissed it away.
They pissed
it away numerous times, man.
Now you got another opportunity. You battle back in.
Positive thinking, and if you're going to be like this, and I'm positive, you can read the Dear Hazy Bees today because I want to go first with positivity.
Okay, I like that. Tyler actually wrote in and said maybe we can do O-Dog as a life coach segment. Right? Ooh. Maybe you just give us a namaste and we get going. And
Dude, stop doing that stupid move.
Why? It's your life coach supports that.
No, it doesn't.
I think he likes that move. I'll bet you Hal Gill would love that move.
He's a bag truck.
I bet you Hal Gill does yoga and then just goes for a cold beer right after.
Okay.
Yes.
Ask him.
Let me bring him in. Former Leaf, former Bruin, Preds analyst. Go ahead. Here's Hal Gill. Oh, you lead the charge here.
Skillsy, have you ever gone to hot yoga and just finished it up right after and walked across the street and just deleted a cold, tall beer?
That's why you do it, right? That's why you do yoga. I'll one-up you, O-Dog. You'll appreciate this. In Montreal, there was a place, an NDG, just outside of Montreal, and I used to go do hot yoga there. And then next door, they had a burger bar with an outrageous martini. And if you top a martini on top of hot yoga, it's perfection. It's heaven. It's exactly, it puts you right in your happy place.
I love it.
That's a great move, Skillsy. I knew you'd have a veteran play like that in your back pocket.
Hot yoga right into martinis.
Yeah, honey, I gotta go do some yoga, and then I'm gonna bury a martini in a burger, and I'll see you in an hour.
If you're doing it right, you bring your wife with you, and she has the martini with you. That's the idea, right?
There you go.
I mean, that's how you do it.
That's
You're
beautiful.
a thinker, man. You're a thinker.
En français, too. You start speaking French, then you're really starting to live life. I love it. Well, we'll get to Nashville, Vancouver here in a moment, but you're an alumni of the Bruins and the Leafs, and they're about to clash again. I don't know if you're a believer in momentum. If you are, what are you thinking about tomorrow night, Bruins-Leafs?
I'm a huge believer in momentum. That being said, momentum can get flipped real quick, and the best players sometimes are the ones that, most of the time, the best players are the ones that flip that momentum. And that could be a fourth-line shift that's your best player, that banging style, or it could be a big goal, a power play. Everything can flip. So I think there's momentum. There's certainly a little bit of fear, I'm sure, in the Bruins, the way they're feeling it right now, coming off it last year. And there's also some fear for Toronto, who hasn't been able to close out a good series. They haven't won this, and they haven't done it. They haven't proven it to themselves that they can do this repeatedly. So I'm not sure which way this goes, but it's going to be tough to go into Boston, into that barn. Either way, it's going to be an awesome game. I love Game 7s, and I don't care how I get them, and I don't care how you get there, because for the most part, once you get to a Game 7, all bets are off, right? I mean, home barn, it can be stressful, and you can put pressure on you. Being on the road, it's going to be hard to play in that building. It doesn't matter. It's awesome. Give me Game 7s all day long.
Hal, put us in the room there. What would be your demeanor, your speech? I don't know if you were a guy that was a talkative guy before the game, but for Toronto, if you're playing for the Leafs tomorrow night on the road and you want to exercise some demons, what would be your message for some of the guys?
You know what? My and I went through this as a younger player. There were Game 7s that I was rattled. You're in your head, you're out of your head, you're out of your mind, you're nervous, and then you're calm, and then you have fun, and then you kind of go through all the emotions. And I will say, it was Dan Bylsma before the Stanley Cup final, Game 7 in 2009, and he said, "How many guys have played in the Game 7?" And a few guys raised their hand on the team, and then he said, "How many guys have played in the Stanley Cup final, Game 7? And I think it was Peter Sikora had played in one. There was only one. And he said, "I played in thousands of these." And we're all looking at him like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, every time I was on the driveway, every time I was on the pond, you're always dreaming about playing Game 7 Stanley Cup Final. No one ever scores a goal that doesn't win Game 7, right? I mean, if you're playing street hockey, you've lived that. You've been dreaming about it. And so my mentality, after listening to that is enjoy it. Go out and you prepared your whole life to do this. Go out and enjoy it and give it everything you got and don't leave anything on the table. But, you're prepared for it. That's what you do. You want to play in Game 7s. You want to be the hero. You want to be the guy who gets the game winner that wins it in overtime. Whatever the case is, that's what you're playing for. So go and enjoy it.
Skillsy, why Leafs tomorrow night? Why are they going to win? I'm tired of talking about the past where it's, they don't get it done. These core group of guys, they always seem to find a way to fail. Why do they win tomorrow? What happens?
Yeah, I thought I've been impressed that last night, they played defense. Where did that come from? I felt like I don't see them as a defensive stronghold team. They kind of waited, and I felt like when I was with the Penguins, we just played good defense, and I knew that Crosby or Malkin would score a big goal. And I feel like maybe Toronto has figured that out, but I think it's hard to argue against the pedigree that the Bruins have, right? That kind of, they've been in those situations. I feel like they're confident with that. I think Marchand is a good leader in the respect that he's going to work like a dog. So I can't give you that, dog. I can't give you that Toronto's going to win it. But I have been impressed by their game, and you need to defend well. You can't give up the easy ones in Game 7. And so I have been impressed with what Toronto has done, and if they can continue that, it's going to be tough to beat them.
With Hal Gill, Nashville, Vancouver tonight. The Preds probably feel like they could or should be up 3-2 in this series, yet their backs are up against the wall. They got to win tonight to survive. Vancouver doesn't have a ton of playoff history. Nashville doesn't have a ton of recent playoff history in terms of success that maybe they can drive on. What is the general mood like around the Preds right now, and how do you see this one playing out tonight?
It's interesting looking around. You saw JT Miller wearing Shelov's dress shirt, which is a classic move. I know, O-Dog, you appreciate that one. You guys love that. But I feel like that's kind of a move you do when you're nervous and you need to lighten the group. It's like, hey, we're a little uptight. We need to do something to loosen up a little bit. And I feel like the Preds before Game 5, I think there was an intensity there that I haven't seen. Usually they're a loose group, but I feel like they were a little more focused, a little more intense. And so I think we're dealing with two different mentalities. One is like, hey, we're okay, we got this. And the other in Vancouver. And then in the Preds locker room, I think they're a little more like, hey, we're going to take this. We're ready for this. We're intense. We're not relaxed. We're not just going to say, hey, we got this. We're going to go make it happen. And so I don't know what's harder, playing with that tension of, hey, we need to make this happen, or playing loose and believing you're going to make it happen. We'll find out. But I think there's two different mentalities right now.
Skillsy, what did you make of, Colton Sissons? You're that close, you hit the post, and then it comes back the other way. Where the guys, is it something? I mean, my heart hurt for him watching that game because, that puts the series at 2-2. How's a kid like that recover from it? How's the guys been with him and recovering and put themselves back into the series here with the big win in Van?
Yeah, I think, you know what, and looking at Sis in particular, he's kind of that second wave of leadership on the team. He's been around for a long time, and he's been with the Preds the whole time. So he was a guy who scored a hat trick in a playoff game. He's been the hero. He knows that, you don't get too high after that. You don't get too low after, a devastating play. I mean, it happens. It happens to everyone, and you can look around and you can blame a lot of different guys for that loss. And no doubt he's blaming himself, but it happens. That's the game. I mean, that's the way it goes. Would he love to take it back? Yeah, he would. He absolutely, but he can't. He's got to move forward, and I think he's got a little bit of that, hey, it's okay. I'm going to get this back mentality. And I think the guys believe in him. So I think he's responded well. The team really responded well. After that collapse, it was a tough one. There's a lot of guys that made mistakes that led to two Besser goals right at the end. And so they're not delusional thinking that it's just Colton Sissons. They're taking it on as a team, and I think that's when you rely on your teammates to grab you a beer after that game and say, hey, let's slough that one off and get back to work. And so as tough as it is and as tough as it was for the fan base to go through that cruncher and that heartbreak, I think this team, they responded really well in Game 5. Let's see if they can do it in Game 6.
With Hal Gill and the Jack Adams finalists were announced today, and two of them are in Nashville tonight. That would be Rick Tocchet for Vancouver and Andrew Brunette for the Preds. And we had you on a month or two ago after the U2 stuff where they were supposed to go see U2 in Vegas. And,
what is that full story, Hayes? They wanted to go and Bruno said no dice?
I think it was planned and they were getting smoked, right? Yeah. It might have been Barry Trotz, even the GM, said, they got smoked, right, Hal? And then he basically said, we're going to Vegas to play, but we're not going there to see U2. And then they ran off a 16-0-2 record right after that.
Yeah, that's their adversity for the year, right? I mean, I think you look at that whole thing, the teams that just cruise through the regular season, everything's awesome. They're not really tested. They didn't really get in each other's face and yell at each other and fight it out to grow as a team. And I think that they certainly did after that one. 9-2 shellacking from Dallas, and it looked like they were going to be sellers before the deadline. And, I think Barry Trotz was like, if you're going to play like that, you're not going to see U2. And you're certainly not going to – I'm not going to go at the trade deadline and make your team better. I'm going to get rid of you guys because you're clowns and you got blown out by a divisional opponent. And then they went and turned it around. They went on an 18-game heater and got all those points and put themselves back into a position. And then Barry Trotz changed his mind, and I don't think he went out and got big acquisitions, but he got Beauvillier and Zucker, and they kind of bonded around that moment. And I think they're kind of doing the same thing in a micro scale here in this playoff series where they were down and out and devastated, and now they're hopefully going to come back and hopefully create another story. That's the Colton Sissons missed the empty net, the Brock Besser 2 goals. They turned that around into their Dallas blowout and then run from there. And so I think they're bonding as a team and trying to grow from it.
Skillsy, before we get you out of here, have you found a little spot in Nashville where if it's a hot day, you can just go there and absolutely hammer back Blue Moons? Have you found that spot?
Doug, I got so many spots in Nashville. When are you coming down? There is plenty of spots. This is the capital of.
Okay, but where's your? I know you like a Sam Adams or a Blue Moon. Where's your favorite spot to hammer a Blue Moon?
Well, it depends on what you're looking for. Do you want to sit out in the heat and you want to get some sun because there's some sneaky spots around?
What if you just wanted some Skillsy time and just watch some football? Skillsy time and football. Where are you going?
If I have Maple Leafs Nation come in, which they do a lot, I will tell you, the Leafs are well represented at Bridgestone Arena, and not just when the Leafs are in town, but constantly. And they're all coming up to me going, Skillsy, let's go for a beer. So I can't divulge that. There's a lot of good spots, though. I'll tell you that.
Okay. Oh, we're sure of that, man. We love Nashville.
What is that about Leafs fans that they have to stand and chant Leafs everywhere they go?
It is a good question. It is. You know what? Like, I remember years ago, Conan O'Brien came up here and did a week of shows, and idiots were just yelling "Go Leafs, go" during the show, and he was getting so mad because like, you're at an entertainment show, man. It's the late night show. Why are you yelling "Go Leafs, go"? It's just that's how people operate.
It's the Vancouver Canucks versus the Nashville Predators. The game is over, and behind the desk, I'm sitting there, and they're screaming in my ear, "Go Leafs, go!" And I'm wondering, why are you not on Broadway sipping those beers that we were talking about? Oh, dog, they choose to just cheer for their team that isn't involved in any way, shape, or form. It's a proud
Leafs Nation, Skillsy.
Fans.
Yeah, you're an alumni.
I don't understand it sometimes.
Well, It's a
Most
massive
passionate
fan
fan base in the National Hockey League, Skillsy. Thanks for joining us today, brother. I love you, pal.
All right. Good talking with you guys. Hey, enjoy the game tonight. It's going to be fun.
It'll be a blast. There he is, Hal Gill, who used to go to hot yoga in Montreal.
Absolutely cripple a martini and a burger.
Hot yoga, burgers, and martinis.
That's a routine.
That's living life.
Oof.
That's
I
a
love it.
lifestyle. What a legend that guy is.
He's played in some pretty good cities. Eh?
Oh, yeah, man. Boston, Montreal, Toronto, Nashville. He's done it all. Pitt. He won a cup in Pitt.
Yeah. Man, oh, man. Like,
Yeah.
He had
Philly.
a good run.
He had a
Really
great run. He
good
played over 1,100 games in the NHL.
Awesome.
Dude, he likes to rip a beer and a martini and a burger. That guy's frame, he does not have 1 ounce of fat on it. Like, completely shredded, jacked.
He's listed as 6'7", 245.
Wow.
Like, he is a monster of a dude.
Yeah,
But,
1,108 games. Wow.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, I'm sure there's people that know him up in NDG, just outside of Montreal. Little hot yoga and a martini.
What is NDG?
It's just a neighborhood. I think it's like Notre Dame de Grace or something like that. I don't know. It's a pretty famous neighborhood in Montreal. And I guess maybe that's where the Habs practice. That's where he
It's
lived.
a pretty famous neighborhood.
I've heard of it. I used to work with a guy that grew up in NDG. He'd always be like, NDG, which is weird because I'm like, that's a neighborhood in Montreal. You know what I mean? Like if I was working in Montreal, I wouldn't be like North York, Etobicoke.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm just looking it up. It's Notre Dame de Grace.
Yeah.
So there it is. So
Well,
NDG.
That's where Hal Gill used to put on an absolute clinic at the hot yoga, and then he'd smash martinis afterwards.
Love it.
Yes. All right. So John Schneider is now speaking with the media, and the other day he was kind of letting everyone know, hey, it's only May 1st. Just relax. We'll be fine.
He got ripped for that, man.
He did, and it sounds as if he's now had a bit of a different approach, maybe a different tone in terms of what's going on. We'll tell you what he had to say this afternoon as they get set for a game tonight down in Washington. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. But in Fridays, brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. From tip-offs to tie bites and puck drops to pizza, BP's elite lineup of apps, wings, and ice-cold beers always dialed in for game time. Hustle into your local BP tonight, where another Canadian team can punch a ticket into the next round, right? Vancouver can get past Nashville. And the Leafs have a chance to do that tomorrow night against Boston. Winnipeg has gone home, but Edmonton's through. Vancouver could get through. Toronto could get through. That'd be all right. Right, from a Canadian hockey standpoint, you get 3 tickets into the next round and guaranteed 1 more into the conference final because someone between Edmonton and Vancouver is going to win.
That's going to be fantastic if that happens. To know a Canadian team in the conference final that has a sniff,
right?
Bring it on. I know you don't like cheat teams, but I do.
Well, listen, I'm rooting for Vancouver with nothing against Nashville. I don't have a dog in that fight, but I would like to see Vancouver Edmonton in the next round. That's much more compelling to me than Edmonton-Nashville. So I'm rooting for Vancouver tonight. If not, it'll go to 7. But, this whole weekend, there's going to be a lot of action. And I guess they've announced Rangers-Carolina will be 4 p.m. Sunday at the Garden. So that series will begin on Sunday. And, again, like we said off the top of the hour, whoever Florida's playing, Boston or Toronto, that will happen Monday night in Sunrise. So Florida's waiting. They're waiting to go. And they're at home. That's a quick turnaround. That means the Leafs are packing for Boston and then Florida.
Yeah.
Right? Like you wrap up your media. You probably stay in Boston Saturday night, maybe skate Sunday, stretch team meeting, fly to Florida Sunday afternoon. But if they win tomorrow night, we'll get on the air on Monday and, of course, be talking about Game 7, win or lose. But
teeing up Game 1.
Exactly. With your eye on Game 1. Like, that's how quickly it's going to turn around. Which it also goes both ways, where if the Leafs lose tomorrow night, Monday night, it's staring at you, Bruins, Panthers. And that's going to be a tough challenge for whoever they play. Like, whoever it's going to be, Boston or Toronto, Florida is going to be a clear favorite and a very difficult out. But
is that They're going to be tough, man.
They're going to be a tough out.
You know what? Deal with it when you get there. Like I say, deal with it when you get there, because you can have all this like lip service and go, Florida's going to murder anybody who gets.
I know,
that,
but
that might not be the case.
Doesn't work that way.
No, that's
in
right.
hockey,
because
usually.
if you do what you do, and you like, it's back to the Maple Leafs again. If you play that way, which is for keeps, playing for keeps, and everyone's all in, you got a chance to win.
Yep.
If Joseph Wall, that's just what they're doing, and what they've done the last 2 games is a recipe for playoff success. Why it took so long, I don't know. They finally got a guy in the net, and Noodles, that's a massive part of it. Because if a couple of those flub in, you're screwed. You have 0 chance to win. But it's like everyone's all in. They're physical. They're on the puck. They're taking away time and space defensively. And I find it crazy, guys, how all these smarty pants out there have all these fabulous new ways to like say, oh, these this is how you win. That's all that matters. There's kids up to the NHL doing stupid skill stuff. How much skill was involved in what happened last night? Obviously, William Nylander's plays were skill, but the whole game's not toe drags and wrist shots and going around plastic pylons. It's manly stuff. Finishing checks, being hard on pucks, battles in front of the net. That's all that happened last night. So whatever the hell was going on for the last bunch of years where it's like 5'10" guys running around, it's insane. It's insane.
Well, the one thing I noticed, like the shots were 12-1 after the first, but if you look at the shot attempts, they were very close. And I thought the Leafs did a really good job of not letting the puck get to the net. Like there were blocks, there were in lanes, they were forcing the Bruins to shoot wide. Like there was a lot of things, like the gaps were really tight. So, you're looking at it and going, I honestly, I don't know how you guys felt. It was halfway through the game and Joseph Wall had like 4 shots.
Yeah.
I was worried. I was getting more nervous for him watching, going, God, he hasn't,
he's going to fall asleep.
Well, you're looking for
Noodles. My point, big
game.
picture was it's just a man's game out there. Like you think whoever gets Florida next, like you got a manly man's game coming up against those boys. They don't screw around, man.
Yeah.
They just you go in the corner, they're going to hit the hurt. And there's a difference between the coach wants me to finish my check, or you hit the guy to hurt. Like you want to hurt the guy. And I know there's people out there that probably think that's gross and they don't want to hear that, but William Nylander pasted a guy against the boards. Looked like he wanted to hurt him. That's a big difference than anything you've seen in the past.
Yeah,
it's a big difference, man.
Well, what they're doing, and the statistics are there for everything. You can find stats on everything. Is they are dumping the puck in at a really significant rate. The Leafs are. Now, part of that is the way Boston defends. Yes,
but you got to do it.
But you have to do it. And not to pick on players of the past, but it would have been, up around the red line. No, we'll circle back and let's try to go D to D. And really what they were doing there was a combination of, I guess, puck possession and holding on. But I think it was also them saying, I don't really want to go get this. Like it's a mentality to say, I'm going to dump the puck in and I got to go get it and we're going to clash, And what you saw to the Bruins last night is they had a really difficult time getting going. Like they had a tough time getting out of their own end because I thought the Leafs did a really good job of forechecking last night and get pucks in and force turnovers or make them look over their shoulder. You do that's the kind of stuff you chip away over the course of a series and you get to a game 7 and that guy's been staring over his shoulder 6 times. That's when he might make a mistake tomorrow night, right? Might panic and throw a pizza up the middle of the ice because he doesn't want to get hit anymore. Right? It's like quarterbacks, the same thing. You keep hitting a quarterback, Tom Brady or Rex Grossman, it doesn't matter. You hit that guy, he doesn't like it. No. He doesn't like it, and he's going to throw a ball away or he's going to take a dive because they don't want to get hit.
No, nobody does. I used to love just pasting a guys, and I kind of had a philosophy, and you can think what you want about it. If I see the guy's eyeballs, I'm probably not going to finish the check because when we play, the guy you're going to eat lumber, right? The way you hurt a guy is if you catch him, he's kind of going up the boards and he doesn't see you and you just absolutely paste him against the board. You can hurt the guy. That's what I like to do. You see a guy's eyeballs coming straight on, there's no sense of hitting the guy because he can just throw an elbow at you. He could eat his lumber. Nobody needs that. But you got a guy that doesn't know you're coming, watch out. That's when you can do some damage, man. That was my philosophy on hitting.
Big time.
Play for keeps. I was watching the Dallas-Vegas game the other night. Did you see the Pietrangelo forearm shiver, whatever the hell that was on Sagan. I don't know. He took a penalty on it, but it was.
Yeah, he did.
He broke his nose, I'm pretty sure. Like, it was, I was watching it live, and I'm like, he did this little swing around with his arm, and it hit him square in the face. And Sagan's nose was bleeding. It looked like they were trying to do some repairs. And, like, that was a serious, it was a serious retaliatory play. Now, I know Bruce Cassidy didn't like it. The reason I bring it up is these guys are playing for keeps, all of them out there.
That was more of a kind of a side punch. I don't know if that was an elbow.
No, it was. Originally they called it a 5-minute major for an elbowing, and then they rescinded it to a 2-minute roughing. 2-minute roughing for that. And Sagan's face was on sideways when he got up. And I know that penalty ended up costing them because Dallas scored on the power play. I think Jason Robertson scored on that power play. But it was Cassidy was asked about it afterwards, said veteran guy didn't like Sagan's penalty on Theodore earlier. But, like, that's the type of stuff that's going on here. Again, within the rules, like, you got to – like, I like the Leafs have treaded up to the line, but you're not crossing it. Like, you're right there. And that's playoff hockey. Like, that's – and Pietrangelo crossed the line, got a penalty. It cost his team. Mm-hmm. But that's what a 2-minute penalty is right now. That's a standard,
yeah, you're right. And, there's so many ebbs and flows to every series, and there's so many things happening behind the scenes that we're not aware of, that we can't confirm, but you kind of know is happening. And I guarantee you, Brad Treliving, maybe Brendan Shanahan, maybe both, after Game 1, the slash on Marchand, Game 2, when Marchand dropped, when Bertuzzi hit him, slashed him, they were calling the league saying, this guy's diving. Like, this guy's diving, even though, they were pretty good whacks. Last night, early in that game, Max gave him a pop, and I thought he dove. Like, Marchand dove. And what I appreciated was that the ref said, get up. We're not calling that. Like, get up. Now, you could look, maybe early in the series they call it, and then Domi looks like, okay, you crossed the line. But I think what's probably happened there is the refs are on notice. Marchand is drawn a lot. What happened in Game 3 where him and Bertuzzi were going at it. And at least I guarantee you behind the scenes have been saying, don't let this guy dictate what the refs are going to do. He's diving. He's manipulative. That's why he's great. And last night he dove, and Domi gave him a pop. He barely touched him. And the ref said, I'm not calling that. Like, we're on notice with you. And I'm curious how Marchand acts tomorrow night, because he'll be fiery. Like, he'll be up. But I didn't think he had a great game last night. Like, the last couple of games, he's kind of blended into the game. He hasn't really been much of a force. I love
when you use that phrase, because it's so true. Those players usually pop out, and you're like, oh, there's that guy. Like, if someone was brand new to hockey, they would point out and say, oh, that guy's doing something that's different than the rest. Mm-hmm. Right. And when you use the term, it's one of the best I've heard on this show in a long time. Blending into the game is brilliant, because that's exactly what's going on. Who's the one that can stand up tomorrow and shine?
Well, that's the beauty of projecting a Game 7 and the beauty of breaking down a Game 7 after it's over, because naturally you're going to look at the goalies, right? The goal, just because of the position they play. Yeah. Like if you give up a bad goal, then you're the guy who gave up a bad goal. If you stand on your head and get the win, you're the guy who stood on your head and got the win. Like, both these guys have a lot at stake, because Swayman and Ullmark have gone back and forth all year. Now Swayman's the guy. Deserves to be. He's been great. Even the last two games. He's given up 4 goals in 2 games. They lost both of them. They didn't lose because of Jeremy Swayman.
He's made 55 saves for 59, I think.
Right. He's got like a .947 save percentage. He's lost 3 games, or 2. I guess Ullmark lost game 2. But still, he's in a position where he's got to battle. And, he wants number 1 status. He can really establish that tomorrow night. He stands on his head and gets a win. Ullmark's not going back in. I can't imagine he would. And Joseph Woll, the same thing. Like, this job's up for grabs, right? Like, whoever wants to be the man in Toronto, it's up for grabs. And if he can push it over the top tomorrow, a kid that went to Boston College, American kid, drafted, developed through the system, something that hasn't happened in a long time here. It can go a long way in terms of building up who he is, his reputation in the city, his reputation throughout the league. So there's a lot of pressure on those 2 guys. And then there's pressure on Marner, there's pressure on Marchand, there's pressure on Pasternak.
It's both sides.
But the question is, who is deeper down the lineup that's going to face the pressure and say, you know what, I'll take it on? You know what I mean? Like, is it Bertuzzi tomorrow night, who's a playoff performer? Max Domi?
One of them. I love it. I love the 2 guys you just mentioned, because I think in a Game 7, you look at big body style players that go to the net, and Max Domi isn't a big body, but their approach is kind of aggressive, and it's predictable, and it goes to the net. Those kind of guys like a Matthew Nyes, John Tavares, like guys that go to the net, those are the guys that I would bet money that they would make a contribution and be a difference maker.
Yep.
Tomorrow night is not always about the William Nylander dangling around or Mitch Marner. It's about those predictable guys that do the simple things that are always around the net.
Yeah. That's probably Trent Frederick, on Boston's side, who's been really good.
It might be like last night. I know Marner the dipsy doodle in that, but like it was a wrist shot from the point that hits a knee pad. Like that's what you're going to have to do is get pucks to the net.
Yeah.
The second goal is beautiful, obviously great play. Like I'm not trying to take anything away. The point being is it might take a redirect. It might take a seeing eye shot. Like it was, that's the type of thing. It's not going to be all just super skill. It's going to be throwing it to the net, hammering home a rebound. Goalie doesn't track it, or it hits something. That's playoff hockey. That's the beauty of it. That's that was my point. Not not
exactly.
trying to take away.
You saw
from
both last night, but it's more
I'll
likely
tell you
the
what,
first one.
If the Leafs pull it off tomorrow night, Jimmy Montgomery is going to be under the gun for some of his decision making. And I know you supported the goaltender, and you and Johnny, because you said that's just what they do. Well, they put Allmark in the second game. They lost the hockey game. Then they won some games, and they took guys out, and they put other guys in, and they lost both the games. So there's been some silly stuff. Overthinking it, and if they lose the series, he'll take heat for that. There's no question.
Oh, I think both coaches are possibly coaching for their jobs tomorrow. Absolutely, like there are jobs on the line tomorrow night. Like it's like if the Leafs win tomorrow night, and all of a sudden you knock down a massive pillar that's been in your way for years, beating the Bruins. Winning a Game 7 for the first time since 2004 as an organization.
Almost Coach of the Year 2 years in a row will get gassed?
I don't know. I mean, Montgomery...
For what I just mentioned?
I wouldn't be shocked with the nature of the position.
I think there's pressure. You're right, though. Like I think both coaches are coaching for their reputation, for their careers, all of that type of stuff. There's players doing that tomorrow on both sides. Mm-hmm. Everything. Like both organizations. We quoted going into yesterday's game a bunch of stats. Like they've lost, it was 6 in a row on home ice or whatever, I believe. Mm-hmm. I believe the Bruins are 0-6 in closeout games.
They are now.
Like they're like there's they're over there in Boston going, well, they can't do it a seventh time. Like a law of averages. We were saying like there's a lot of on both sides. The narratives are kind of the same. Like that's why I started the show. I wasn't like I know you brought it up. Marchand's the comments seem desperate or whatever.
I didn't say desperate. I just said it reeks of some. The only time a person in pro sports uses the phrase, if you had told us at the beginning of the year, they're usually during stressful time.
For something.
Right.
Yeah, they're not up 3-0 in the series. Like there's trouble brewing. That's my only point. I did not say the word desperation. I want to make that point clear.
Fair enough. My point being is it's either way, however you arrived at it, the storyline, there's so much at stake on both sides. Mm-hmm. So that's what's very unique about this situation is I think we all thought it was going to be a long series, but it just now all of a sudden coaches under the gun, legacy, all of these types of things on both sides. I'm sure they're saying the same thing. The OverDrive of Boston is saying the same thing.
Oh, they're all over them in Boston. You can bank on that because of what they did a year ago.
Yeah.
They literally did the same thing a year ago where they lost Game 5 at home in overtime to Florida and Toronto and then went back on the road, lost. And they lost Game 7 last year in overtime as well. Like, those were tight, contested games. It's not like Florida just took off and destroyed them. I think they won Game 6 pretty big. But Game 5 they won in Boston in overtime. I believe they won Game 6 in overtime. I'm pretty sure Verhaeghe scored the winner.
Yeah, the Game 7 in overtime. That was Verhaeghe. That was Verhaeghe. But the other thing, too, Hayes, you might have retweeted this or something. I saw it on StatsPass last night. Was it 3 series that they've played each other? Like, it matches up the games won. It's crazy.
It's the same thing. That's what, again, drags you back if you're a Leaf fan. As optimistic and as fun as this has been, you're like, are they going to finally be able to do it? Game 7, against Tampa, Game 7 against Montreal, Game 5 against Columbus in the bubble, Game 7 Boston, Game 7 Boston, Game 7 Boston in 13.
Jesus, stop saying this stuff.
I understand. I get it, but that's their history. That's the reality.
I know. I just didn't know there was that many to rhyme off like that. It was gross to hear.
They've had a lot of Game 7s in the past, and the Leafs, the reason they had any doubt, the reason why there is so much anxiety in the fan base is because they couldn't close on any of them, right? If they went on a run 4 years ago, it would be a totally different vibe. If you could draw on something and say, remember 2 years ago when they won that Game 7, that's how I think they'll play tomorrow night. You can't do that because they don't have that. But they have been good on the road. They're 2-1 in that building in this series. Last year against Tampa, they went 3-0 in Tampa. Let's see what they got tomorrow night. Curtis Joseph will join us in 20 minutes. John Schneider said something a couple of days ago that caught the ire of many people in this city. He appears to have changed his tune going into the series
when they
tonight.
do that. It's like you own it. You got to own it. Don't circle back and be like, yeah, what I said the other day, I didn't mean it. It's
all right.
Like, this is big boy stuff. What are you doing, man?
We'll come back and play it, and then I'll let you know what he had to say this afternoon. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Curtis Joseph in about 15 minutes. Dear Hazy B at 6:30. Our best bets brought to you by FanDuel coming up. Jays in Washington playing the Nationals. They're favorites tonight. You got Kikuchi on the mound. So they're coming off an off day yesterday, and a couple of days ago they lost to Kansas City. They had 4 hits. Their offense, again, the stats speak for themselves. If you're watching any of these games, it's painful. They're 2 games under 500. It has not been a good start. Ken Rosenthal wrote something in The Athletic, pretty scathing analysis of what's going on and what they're facing, how much money this team is spending. Like, they've got a massive payroll, $225 million.
And their offseason was described by the same man you just mentioned as confusing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they didn't really address much, and some of the pieces they brought in have worked, like Justin Turner, and then you look at a guy like Vogelback, and they don't even use him. Like, I'm not really sure what the purpose is.
I don't even see that guy.
They never bring him. There's been ample opportunities where you'd think this is a guy, power left-handed bat you bring in, and they don't do it. And the Joey Votto story is crazy. Like, he's just disappeared. Like, is he still trying to play?
Dude, the guy was taking pictures of the opening set in Tampa in the crowd.
Right. I don't know what's up with Votto.
Why can't he go in there and try to hit, though? That's what I don't understand. You're not going to have to pay him a lot. Maybe the guy could get a hit.
I guess maybe his ankle's all mashed up still. I haven't heard anything on Votto.
You just mentioned his name. I'd completely forgotten about him.
He's
like flat out forgotten about him.
Yep. Completely off the radar. All right, so here's what Schneider had to say the other day after the Jays got beat up pretty bad by Kansas City.
What do you say to the people who are just tired of hearing, we know it'll come, when it hasn't yet?
They're going to get bored of me saying the same thing. It's going to come. It will. It's May 1st. It will come. We will be better. That's what I can say to them. You know what I mean? And I would hope that our fans trust the fact that we have really good players, that they understand they're not performing up to their expectations, and that I hope they know that we will be better.
So that was a very nonchalant, hey, how dare you suggest that we should be panicking here. It's so early. We will figure it out. Which, again, a lot of games left, absolutely. And Springer's a good player, Bichette's a good player, Vladdy's a good player. We know that. They'll be better than this. Of course they will be. But how much better? All-star levels of production, I guess we'll find out. I'm not sure Springer's got that in him anymore. And you look at the way Vladdy's hit the last 2 years, I'm not sure that's necessarily the expectation either. But I guess Schneider doing media down there in D.C. was just asked, and we don't have the audio or video yet, but Keegan Matheson, our buddy from MLB.com, tweeting out that Blue Jays manager John Schneider struck a much different tone here in Washington than he has heard from him this season publicly. Schneider now is saying, quote, the time is now. The time is not, it's going to happen. The time is now, end quote.
Well, I didn't understand the other comment. It's like, it's May, don't worry. The season started in March. Yeah. Why aren't you ready to go? Like, you had 2 months of spring training and then the season starts. Why are you not ready to go? Or just come out and say, I don't think this roster is good enough. And then it's on the GM for putting it together. It's one or the other. Yeah. You don't get 2 months grace period in the big leagues. You don't. So why weren't you ready in March? Why wasn't it ready to go in March? What were you doing for 2 months down in Florida? That's an idiotic comment. It's an insane comment.
Yeah, it's a good point. This idea that April, those games don't count. Like wins in April count the same as wins in
Don't worry
September.
about it. It's still early. You're supposed to be ready for first pitch. That's what spring training's for.
Well,
you get a 2-month grace period, then you're going to crank it up? That's a ridiculous statement from a skip.
And that's why he's got it. Someone got to him because
No
they do this all the
kidding.
time with their PR, the way they don't do themselves any favors. Schneider, Atkins, Shapiro's pretty good at it, but at times he can catch himself. Someone got to him and said, can you go out there and make sure people know you'd like to win right now?
Yeah.
Yes. Like maybe go out there and say, yes, we realize we're 2 games under 500. We can't hit anything. Our pitching hasn't been great either, and we got to get cooking. Because if not, Schneider could be in trouble, Atkins could be in trouble, and the owners are like, we just pumped in like $400 million for this new stadium. We're paying a fortune for this roster, and they stink right now.
Yeah.
Maybe you should take some acknowledgement on that. Final hour for the week coming up. Lots of tee-up Game 7 tomorrow night. 2 other games in the Stanley Cup playoffs tonight. Cujo coming up. Dear Hazy B coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.